Welcome to Truth Recon. I'm Agent D. Baker, former narcotics detective, SWAT team member, and U.S. Navy combat veteran. With years of real world experience in high stakes environments, I've seen firsthand the dangers that lurk both in our communities and now increasingly online. Before this show begins, understand this. What you are about to hear may be disturbing to some audiences. This podcast contains explicit language, dark themes, and real conversations that are not suitable for children and may be triggering for some individuals. If you choose to continue, do so knowing this content is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised. Where is. Hold on one second. Let me figure out what's going on with my camera. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the live from the Truth Recon Cave, I think is the name we have decided on. The lamp. Every time I'm going to miss something. There we go. So tonight we're diving deep into the most corrupt county, definitely in Alabama, possibly in the country, Walker County, Alabama, and another horrible failure by Sheriff Nick Smith. And this is part of our ongoing documentary project on Walker County corruption, missing people, unsolved cases, and just the complete breakdown of justice under Nick Smith. So I hope everyone's having a good, whatever night it is, Monday. A good Monday night so far. But we do have a lot to discuss. I think it's going to be very, very interesting tonight. If you have not had a chance, I did put out a short podcast earlier today, another one on the fake Dr. D's. He's also running for U.S. Senate, but it's not about politics anymore because he's not a viable candidate at all. So, he's not going to win or anything like that. But the man has, every once in a while, well, more often than I would like, we end up coming up with these characters that we soon realize every single thing they say out of their mouth is just not true. And wow, I have found out that is the truth for sure for this Dr. Deese. He's almost a complete scam. He is and this is not what we're going to talk about tonight. I just wanted to go over this very quickly, but make sure you go check out that video after the live or tomorrow. But he did he did finish med school, but that's it. He is not a licensed physician, nor, anywhere he can't. He's not allowed to practice medicine. He is completely unemployed. He claims he owns a business. It doesn't exist. So it's crazy. Somebody. He has to have some intelligence, right, to make it through med school, obviously. But it's crazy somebody like that would run for U.S. Senate and not think all that crap would come out at some point. The only reason that hadn't came out yet is because none of the other candidates or their campaigns cared because, again, he's not a viable candidate, and I get that. It's not like they were going to waste time on researching him or anything, but it didn't take us long to dig up all this stuff. It's crazy. But anyway, we're going to every time. Are y'all messing with me about this volume? Because every time somebody says I can't hear and then everybody else says I can, y'all just all get together and decide who's going to say that? Okay. Good for everybody else, Priscilla. I'll give you a break. Priscilla is one of my favorites. But yeah, go check that out. Hold on, I'm reading a long comment. Thank you for the little puppy thing there. I don't know what it was, but it was a cute little thing. All right. So, and it may have been Priscilla the other night, but somebody kept bringing up, talking about wanting me to go to discuss the Nick Smith human trafficking, whatever you want to call it. It was a case he was part of that he ended up letting everybody off completely free. It's horrible. And so I told y'all we would go into that tonight. And so we're going to start off with that. So we'll go over all the details of it, and then we'll have some discussions about it. It's this case is straight up human trafficking involving two. Let me give my trigger warning. The things we're going to be discussing, as always, but especially tonight, are not for young ears, obviously. And if certain things talking about child predators are big triggers for you, you may want to log off or whatever. Obviously, I always keep it as clean as I can, but we are going to be discussing some horrible things, unfortunately, but these things need to be discussed. Everyone needs to know, number one, how these things happen, and that's to protect you and your children and family, and everyone needs to know who Nick Smith really is and his agency and some of the things they have done. Because they can say one thing, but obviously their actions are something completely different. So this case is straight up human trafficking involving two minor girls, adult men in motel rooms, Ruggs, registered offender, and a mother who handed her own 14-year-old daughter over. Now, Sheriff Smith's office made a big Facebook post promising justice to the fullest extent of the law, literally, when they first did this case. And tonight, we're going to read that post word for word and then compare it to the actual court records. The difference is troubling, to say the least. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due. Amber with Secrets True Crime Podcast is who originally broke this story and put it all together. she did all the work to put all this together. So I want to make sure to give her the credit for all the info on this case. And if you are not following Secrets True Crime Podcast on Facebook, make sure you go and give her a follow. You're missing out if you're not already following her. And so just make sure you do that. And she also did a short video in reference to this case back in, I think, February maybe of this year that you should all go check out sometime. Because she goes over all the details as well. And she put all of this together and gathered all this info. So she did a lot of work on this. And I did speak with her today and make sure she was good with me pretty much using her work tonight. And, of course, she doesn't mind. She wants the word spread as well. Oh, no, Red Roddy. Thank you. One of these days, I may actually get everything the way it's supposed to be from the beginning. Probably not, but we'll keep trying. Her name is Amber Sitton, but her Facebook page and her podcast is Secrets True Crime Podcast. And you can follow her on Facebook, but she also has an amazing podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, I think pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. So if you've not listened to her podcast, she's got 2 seasons, I think, 2 full seasons. Team, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 2. Once you start listening to them, you won't stop. It's true crime. I mean, and she knows what she's doing. She's very good at it. All right, we'll get on into it. So on January 10th, 2023, the Walker County Sheriff's Office posted this on Facebook. And I'm reading you exactly as it was written. Monday afternoon, the Walker County Sheriff's Office responded to a call at a local motel in the county. The caller, a concerned family member, stated she believed an underage female was in a room with an adult male. Patrol deputies, along with Sheriff Smith, responded to scene. During the investigation, 2 underage females were discovered to be in separate rooms, each one with an adult male. Because of the ages of the victims, the Walker County Department of Human Resources, DHR, was notified, and they also responded to the scene. Both adult males had outstanding warrants with the Jasper Police Department and were taken into custody. It was determined that a parent of one of the underage females drove the girl to the motel, rented the room, then left the child unattended at some point. That parent was also taken into custody and charged with endangering the welfare of a child. The Walker County Sheriff's Office Crimes Division is investigating the situation, and more charges are expected as the investigation continues. The names of those arrested are being withheld for the safety of the children involved and because the investigation is continuing. Hold on, I lost it. It just went away. And the investigation is continuing. Our children are our greatest asset in Walker County, and the Walker County Sheriff's Office will protect them. Above all, this is a very heartbreaking situation. And thinking about this entire situation will make anyone physically sick, especially another parent. The amount of trauma and mental anguish that these girls have and will endure in the future is troubling, to say the least. Our office, along with DHR and the Walker County District Attorney's Office, will be making every effort and diligent in seeking justice to the fullest extent of the law. Unfortunately, you're going to see as we get into this, none of that happened at all. So that post was shared more than 500 times, hundreds of comments. People weren't just asking for justice for the kids, they wanted the names of the adult men. The sheriff's office refused. That's your first red flag there. Obviously, they're not going to release the juveniles' names, the victims, nor should they ever. The suspects, I can't legitimately think of any reason why you wouldn't want to release their names as long as they're adults. And obviously, they're adults. My mind always goes when an agency refuses to release some names. My mind always goes to, because of my prior career, maybe they are, maybe they flipped them into informants or something. Well, a crime like this, you're not. If you do, you need to be in prison yourself. You're not going to use someone that's responsible for this type of crime as an informant. They don't get any passes. They go straight to jail and then hopefully convicted and then to prison. They don't get to do anything. But then so they refused to release these names. Then within weeks, the Tony Mitchell jail video surfaced. And this story vanished from public view. But the court records didn't. Just like those posts that Nick Smith will make, and some of us will be quick enough to take a screenshot and then he deletes them and acts like they didn't happen. Well, they happened, and we have them forever. Now, let's compare the public statement to reality. The Post claimed both adult men had. Hold on a second. Let me look at something. So both adult men were actually taken into custody. I think some people were originally saying that they didn't think they were taken into custody, but they were. So they did go to Jasper City Jail for outstanding warrants through the city of Jasper that day. And according to the actual complaint filed in this case, deputies found two separate situations. One adult man, 24 years old, was found in a motel room with a 12-year-old female. 12. Despite the sheriff's office claiming he was taken into custody, no arrest record, no charges, nothing tied to this incident for him. You heard that right. 24 years old, in a motel room with a 12-year-old. To this date, no record has been located that he ever faced any charges in relation to this case. And this was in 2023. It's now 2026. All right. The second man was Austin Clay McCollum. 22 years old at the time, and he was found in the room with a 14-year-old girl. And then make sure you listen to this. McCollum was already a registered offender under SORNA. But the public had no way of knowing because his prior case was sealed under Alabama's Youthful Offender Act. Hold on one second. I was checking on something. I've been told that you can get youthful offender for a charge like that, but and that can be sealed. But if you're supposed to be registered, you're still supposed to be registered. I'm sure Walker County didn't do something correctly with that. But me just realizing, I just now realized that you could get youthful offender for a crime like that. We got to change that. I think everybody could agree. If whatever you did was bad enough to put you on the offender registry for the rest of your life, I don't think you should get youthful offender. I think most of us could agree on that. Now, for McCollum, court records show a complaint was filed and an arrest warrant issued on January the 11th, 2023. But he wasn't actually arrested until January the 29th, which is an 18-day gap. Now, we know he did go to Jasper City Jail that day. So I will give them a benefit of a doubt that maybe he spent 18 days in there. But that's literally complete speculation on my part. It just makes me feel a little better to think that's why they left him out for 18 days. But during those 18 days, Nick Smith's office had already posted that both men were in custody. The complaint states McCollum answered the door. The 14-year-old was in the bed. She told deputies she spent the night there. And it gets worse. She also tested positive for ice. I can't say the other word because I think TikTok kicked me off. But she tested positive for ice, the green substance, and alcohol. 14 years old. Complete speculation on my part right now. I'm going to bet she got those rugs from the 22-year-old evil POS she was with. Anyway, McCollum was only charged with one thing: a SORNA violation, failing to follow the offender registration rules about where he could live and who he could be around. And his bond was set at $15,000 cash. This keeps getting worse, by the way. If you're already pissed, you're going to get more pissed. Fast forward to September 26, 2024. McCollum pleads guilty to obstructing governmental operations, a misdemeanor, a very minor charge. The original SORNA charge is dropped. He gets 12 months and receives 485 days jail credit. So he walks free. No felony, no SA conviction. For the second time in his life, at only 22 years old, for the second time in his life, he avoids the registry. Now, back in 2021, he had been in jail on charges of rape, second degree, and you'll never guess this one, and traveling to meet a child for, I think you can input that word. And those are the records that were likely sealed under youthful offender. Now, at 22 years old, he's in a motel room with a 14-year-old who tested positive for hard drugs. And again, no consequences. None. And I don't think we have to, but we can go back to the statement that Walker County Sheriff's Office put out that they were going to charge these child that they were going to charge them to the fullest extent of the law. This is a prime example of, look, I get it. For a lot of you, and for me in the beginning when I first started investigating Walker County, it was hard for me to comprehend and hard for me to think that a sheriff and a sheriff's office, that a law enforcement agency would do some of these things. And so I get a lot of you, it's hard for you to believe that they would make this post and then not do anything they said in the post. Nothing, not even close to it. So they made the post because Nick Smith's good at making those posts, right? Especially right now around election time. And he gets those clicks, and then he brags about how he has solved the drug problem in Walker County, which is the biggest joke I've ever in my fucking life heard. Excuse my language. And he's out here playing God, and he's bringing all these people, he's getting all these people saved, and he's not doing anything. Nick Smith loves one thing, and that's himself. That's it. Now, let's talk about the mother who we're gonna keep calling her Jane Doe, and that's to protect the child's identity. I do understand that. So Jane Doe drove her 14-year-old daughter to the Warrior River Motel, rented the room, and left her unattended overnight. The 12-year-old friend was in the other room with the 24-year-old. It's mom of the year right here. McCollum had actually registered room 5 at the same motel as his residence with the sheriff's office just 3 days earlier. Jane Doe was charged with endangering the welfare of a child, which is a Class A misdemeanor. I'm telling you, they really threw the law at these people. Man, they really threw the law at them. Misdemeanors flying all over the place. On January 11th, 2023, Judge Henry Allred set her bond at $100,000 cash and wrote on the order that she was a danger to the community, referencing the alleged human trafficking, no contact with the victims, and potential for more charges. The judge wrote on the order she was a danger to the community. And I know it says alleged human trafficking. That's human trafficking. Okay. When you take your minor child to meet someone for what they were doing, it's human trafficking. Literally. And I guarantee you, I would bet everything I have, there was pay involved. Yes, this is as sick as it sounds. And this happens, unfortunately. And if it happens in Walker County, you get a misdemeanor. So the mom's in on a $100,000 cash bond. That's awesome. I give the judge props for that. Nobody can make that. The public defender filed to reduce bond. And before the judge ruled, a Walker County District Attorney investigator personally told courthouse security that someone was coming with the full $100,000 in cash to bond her out. This is something else that I would never believed. I mean, I just said it. Nobody can make that bond. Most people don't have $100,000 in cash laying around. But a man from neighboring Winston County showed up with a bag of cash and paid it in full. And Jane Doe walked out on April 13th, 2023. Now pay attention. Then Judge Allred dismissed the charges against her. And the handwritten note on the dismissal, dismissed at the officer's request. Dismissed at the officer's request. No reason given on the public record. We are talking about a mother who delivered her 14-year-old daughter to a registered offender's motel room. The child tested positive for hard drugs, and the case is dismissed because an officer asked for it. I will tell you this. Somebody that does have $100,000 in cash laying around probably has a lot more. And when you're talking about a sheriff that makes, I've heard at most $90,000, and some deputies that make 35, 30 at the most, probably. You can read between the lines. This happened in Walker County, Alabama. Nick Smith cannot claim I didn't know anything about this. I wasn't there. He was literally on. He literally responded to the scene and was there. I would bet, I would hope anyway, before a deputy could go to a district attorney or judge and ask for charges to be completely dropped on a human trafficking suspect, that somebody higher up in the sheriff's office would have had to approve that. And at a sheriff's office this size, more than likely the sheriff, especially considering the sheriff himself was there. And remember, the dismissal said, literally, it specifically said officer's request. Was it a deputy or was it the actual sheriff? We don't know. But we know this woman was stuck in jail on a $100,000 cash bond. And somehow had someone with $100,000 in cash come and pay it. And right after that, everything dropped. And she got off scot-free. So if you were not keeping notes, not one person was charged with anything serious whatsoever in that case. The worst charge that we got out of that was obstructing governmental operations, a misdemeanor. Was Keaton the lead investigator during this time? Because if he was either directly involved or he turned a blind eye to it. That's a fact. This is a big case. This is a very serious case. In my experience in law enforcement, if it's my case, the district attorney nor judge or anyone's going to listen to any other officer or agent or deputy except the lead investigator. So it's not like some random officer came up there and requested this. It was either the lead investigator or Sheriff Smith himself. DHR was called out to scene that night, according to the Post. Now, were they really? We don't know. Or I don't know anyway. There is no one currently working at the Walker County Sheriff's Office that I would consider a good guy. Not one person there has not turned a blind eye to bad things. And in my opinion, in law enforcement, you're just as guilty as everybody else if you turned a blind eye to it. especially in an agency that size. Everybody's going to know everything. This is just one example of Nick Smith in the Walker County Sheriff's Office. Just one. And remember, we would have never heard anything. This would have been completely unknown if Nick Smith wasn't trying to get votes and had them make, or I'm sure he actually made the post the next day because he was trying to get votes. Because he's too ignorant, too stupid to think ahead. And so they made the post. Then when people got paid, he thought they could just drop it and nobody would ever ask questions, which is true if it weren't for Amber Sitton. I don't think I know what happened to the money. So the person who paid it should have gotten it back, but I don't know. So I'm going to speculate that he did, but again, I don't know that for sure. That is pure speculation on my part. But we're talking about an agency that at that same time, so that same time in 2023, Jason Hare was a sworn deputy with the Walker County Sheriff's Office. I don't know if he was an SRO at that time, but if he wasn't then, he was soon after. A child predator. Oh, we also know now that Nick Smith's best friend, Walker County's coroner, Joey Vick, is a lifelong child predator with multiple victims. And Nick Smith has not investigated him one time. It would lead you to believe maybe they don't give a shit about this. Maybe they don't see it as a crime. One of the most troubling things that I have ever learned since I started law enforcement was when I learned there are legit people, grown people out there that don't think this should be a crime. When I figured that out, it was gut-wrenching, to say the least. Like, how could you not think that's a crime? And then we have a freaking fake doctor, he's been through medical school at least, that's running for U.S. Senate that believes that too. Now, thankfully, he's not going to get into office in D.C., but he was trying. And he showed us plain and clear, I mean, as clear as you could be, that that's how he feels. He doesn't think it should be a crime. This is not 1930 anymore. If if you know someone, a citizen of Walker County that votes, and they have told you they're going to vote for Nick Smith, you need to sit them down and have a very serious talk with them. And if they still vote for him, let me say this loud and clear. If they still vote for him, they are either the dumbest freaking people on this face of the earth, or they're crooked. No way around that. We have more evidence than we could ever need or want to show who Nick Smith really is and what his agency really does and what it's about. This is not a conspiracy theory. I wish I could say it was. This is factual stuff. We have the county coroner that is a known child. We have the county coroner that is a known child predator. And the sheriff of that same county who at the least, doesn't think it should be a crime. We have at least one previous deputy that we know is a child predator. You'll never convince me that's all. This is, I mean, we're going through the same thing with talking about the ramp, the ministry, the cult disguised as a ministry in Hamilton, Alabama, which is just a few counties north of, or south, no, Marion County is a few counties north of Walker County, where Sherry, we need to have a serious talk if you think we're going to vote for Danielle Calloway. She has blatantly lied to everybody on social media, claiming she has taken all these classes when we know she hasn't. She's completely lying. She has never taken any of these classes that she's supposed to take. So, no, I would not recommend anyone vote for Danielle Calloway. Again, that's facts. Facts. There's so much I can't even keep up with where I was. We saw with the ramp, it's never just one. When it's when it's very systemic, when it is part of the culture at an organization, there's going to be more than one. And when you have a sheriff that, again, at the least doesn't think it should be a crime, and you have a county coroner who is also the sheriff's best friend, who is, I mean, he is a well-known child predator at this point. Multiple victims have spoken out. You have a deputy county coroner, Danielle Calloway, who has never, ever, let me say this quick, never, ever taken any of the required classes she's supposed to take. And then, to make it worse, she gets on social media and lies about it and says she has taken all these, plus some. Then, we were able to prove she was completely lying. She had never taken any of them. That's the culture there. How do you become deputy coroner there? I'm not going to answer that question, but I know the answer. I could guess the answer anyway. I think anyone really think about it, you probably could. Oh, guess what? Let's not forget one of the previous deputy corners that Joey Vick had made a deputy corner was a registered offender. You can't make this stuff up. He was a registered offender when Joey Vick made him a deputy corner. Then some people found out and raised enough hell, and so he had to let him go. Are y'all seeing a big pattern here? These are not coincidence. This is what we call a pattern. And this is how bad some people want Nick Smith to stay in office. Let's pull up these campaign funds quickly. Nick Smith, as of this was last week, I think it's changed a little since. As of last week, still had $30,000 on hand in his campaign fund, and had already spent over $75,000. Jason Akins, who is probably going to win, who we hope wins, who is the only candidate that needs to win, is the only hope Walker County has spent a total of $4,400. That right there tells you he's probably the best one. A lot of the people with big money in Walker County, guess how they have big money? I'll let you guess. And guess where a lot of that money that Nick Smith's spending is coming from? It's all pretty clear. It's all pretty clear. It doesn't take an intelligent person to figure this stuff out. I mean, it doesn't. And then we have this place in Coleman, so not Walker County. Nick Smith is spending most of his campaign money in Coleman County. You think he cares about Walker County? No, if he did, he would be spending most of his money in Walker County. The sheriff running for Walker County Sheriff has spent 85% of his campaign money in Coleman County. And he gets on social media and talks about how much he loves Walker County. No, you don't, dude. You love who is putting money in your pocket. That's who he loves. And we know one of those people is his great, 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 great grandfather, Old Man Burns, a.k.a. Charles Bishop. How many smaller businesses in Walker County that would love to have somebody come to their business and spend $40,000 in 1 month? Probably all of them. Probably all of them. And Nick Smith cares so much about those small businesses there. He doesn't spend his money there. That would be like our governor of Alabama spending 85% of their campaign funds in Georgia. That would raise a lot of eyebrows. Trust me. There is more going on here than even I know. I'm not ashamed to say that. This is deeper than I can even realize right now. Hopefully, one day I may figure it out, but I'm not counting on it. All I can tell you is I have never in my life seen anything like this. And I talk to law enforcement professionals all over this country. And when I start telling stories about Walker County, not one yet has just looked at me and go, "Oh yeah, that's not surprising." Not one. Everybody's like, every single one of them. There's no way that's true. It is. That's how unbelievable this stuff is. Who is that? Who is Todd Williamson? The name, I know the name, I just can't. Who is that? Are you saying how can Nick sleep at night? He's sick, literally. I mean, he's sick. He doesn't have a conscience like you and I. That's very obvious. Is that fake account that I'm always pointing out? Oh, I think it is. Hold on, I got to check this out. There's one fake account that comments on every single one of Nick's things, and I've actually checked it out and I've pulled the pictures and it's not real. It's a fake account. Um, that may be why I know the name. That's another crazy thing. Nick Smith is always talking about these all these people behind these fake accounts on social media. We know for a fact he's got some. And me and my team can tell you we know for a fact I don't have not one fake one. Anything I want to say, I say it. I think you all probably realize that by now. I don't think I have to convince you. Oh no, Bobby Mason is the one I'm talking about. Yeah, Bobby Mason comments on that's not real. Is Todd Williams one of the fake accounts that the John guy was behind? What's that John guy's name? He's been paying Nick in his campaign. The one that started the Possum Press or whatever. It didn't last long. I hated that Possum Press didn't last long. I wonder what happened to it. I think it's John Bruce. Don't quote me on that. I'll make sure in just a minute. I got to show y'all this. This is how good Nick Smith is at keeping up with stuff. Nope, not that. I'm gonna make this big so y'all can. This is one of his campaign finance reports. We have to list each contributor's full name, and on line 3 here we just have Bruce. Bruce, that's it. You know Bruce. This is some Walker County shit right here. Bruce gave $500. And Ricky Wade is one of his big supporters financially. I was trying to see if I see Todd Williamson. Ricky Wade's on every single one of them. He gives at least 1,000 each week, like for the last month at least. But those of you that live in Walker County, you need to take note of who's giving to Nick Smith. I forgot to, team, will y'all remind me? We need to add up Mr. J.J. Jackson's contributions and all. I know that guy's name is on here. It's probably going to be the last one I check. Yeah, Ricky Wade has given a lot. John Bruce, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's Mr. Bruce. He's the one that's been behind a bunch of fake profiles, and again, he was behind the Possum Press. John Bruce. I don't even know if he lives in Walker County either. Why would we block you, Gene? Now, Saturday night, I called out every single name that had given money to Nick Smith's campaign. Y'all talking about Governor Jamel Brown, John Cruz. Cruz. I wonder if that's the same name. I wonder if that's the same guy. I wonder if they're misreporting it. Thank you for correcting that, Priscilla. So yeah, let me be clear. John Cruz is who I was talking about. So I don't know if there may be a separate guy named John Bruce. I'm sure my team can go to work and figure out if there's an actual John Bruce. Yeah, John Cruz is the one I was thinking about. If these fake accounts are giving praise to Nick, then more than likely they're his accounts. No, you're exactly right. Who is this? That name looks familiar to me. Bubba Gilliland? Gilliland? However you pronounce it. I know that name. I just can't place it. Christina, I would like for you to message me. I want to ask you about that. Now, does Cruz live in Walker County? That's what I thought. Yeah, he lives in Jefferson County. That's what I was thinking. He doesn't even live in Walker County. I truly think he would go to prison for Nick Smith. There's something there. Yeah, message me, Christina. And hey, if you're not following me, please hit the follow button or subscription, whichever platform you're on, because I'm on. I'm live on 3 different platforms. But if you're not following me, I really appreciate that. And if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'd really appreciate that. We're trying to build that up, and that's also a place where you can find my full podcast. You can find all my full podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. So make sure y'all go check those out at some point. But yeah, I'd really appreciate subscribers on YouTube. And then we finally have an X account as well. You can find me on there as Agent D. You can find me everywhere, Agent D Baker, except for Facebook, and it's just my full name, Derek Derek Baker. But everywhere else is Agent D Baker. So any platforms you're on, I'd appreciate the follow. And if you're enjoying the live and getting some value out of it, we appreciate gifts as well. But yeah, back to the original story that we were talking about in the beginning. That one case right there tells you everything you need to know about Nick Smith. I mean, a grown woman physically drove her 14-year-old daughter to a motel room and let her stay the night in a room with an adult male that was already a registered offender. And that 14-year-old then tested positive for ice and some other drugs. And not one person involved in that was ever even charged with a felony. Not one. And the mom All of her stuff got completely dropped when some guy from Winston County out of the blue came down with $100,000 in cash and bonded her out. Tammy, absolutely she was. No, I guarantee you there was pay involved. That's what they do. And that's legit human trafficking. Unless you're in Walker County. If you're in Walker County and can pay a little extra money under the table, you're good to go. But yeah, it's sick. It's sick. We have something else I want to discuss tonight. It's in a way it is related to the ramp, the cult we've been investigating, and the leader Karen Wheaton. Let me get this post pulled up. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I will not be live Wednesday night, but I am doing a special live tomorrow night for election night. And we'll probably get started around 8. But make sure you don't miss that. So there's I think he's a pastor. Lead pastor at Redemption to the Nations Church. I've never heard of the guy, but I think he's pretty popular. Somebody sent me a post he made. I think it was yesterday, and it now I don't that I know of. His post has absolutely nothing to do with the ramp or Karen Wheaton stuff. I'm just when I read this, that's the first thing I thought about, and so I'm going to be talking about this post in relation to that. From reading some of this guy's comments, that is not what he was talking about. So I want to make that clear. This is not a knock on this Kevin Wallace. I don't know him. Give me about a minute to get this pulled up. So here's the post. And for those that can't see it because it's too small, I'll read it. So this is quoting Kevin Wallace. I don't think I've ever been able to be as engaged in a social media conversation as I am this conversation about exposure. I'm enjoying reading the responses and seeing the perspectives. My favorite perspective, as I read, this is my favorite. My favorite perspective, as I read, this is the those who are against exposure must be hiding something. The reality is the opposite is usually true. Many of you may be too young to remember the 80s and scandal after scandal that rocked the church. Suffice it to say, those who exposed themselves were eventually exposed. It may sound holy, pious, and spiritual to say anyone who is for mercy and anyone who is for, and I'm guessing he accidentally left it out, but anyone is for exposure, or maybe he meant against exposure, must be hiding sin. But history often reveals the opposite to be true. Those calling for judgment and exposure are at times the ones who are hiding something. Not everyone who believes in restoration, mercy, and waiting on God is hiding something. What was Jesus hiding when he freed the woman caught in the act of adultery? What was Paul hiding when he said in Galatians, we should restore people who have fallen? Some people are for exposure because they are against mercy. God help them, blessings to all. Now, again, as far as I know, this has nothing to do with what's going on at the ramp or anything, so I'm not dogging this preacher. But I couldn't disagree more. And I would like to hear y'all's thoughts on that, but I could not disagree more. So he is saying that a lot of us say those who are against exposure, well, they must be hiding something. If they're against this exposure, then they must be hiding something. Yeah. Most of the time, that's true. But he says the reality is the opposite is usually true. Yes, I'm sure that happens sometimes. But I don't think you could say usual. I mean, not now. He and I we live completely different lives, so maybe what he has seen is completely different than what I've seen. But that is definitely not the case in what I've seen. But this led me down a whole path here that I got into. And reading some of these comments, and I will tell, I mean, I am a proud Christian, and I have been my whole life. I go to church. I'm far from perfect, but I am a Christian. I think we as Christians are doing a really bad job for the church. And when I say we, I'm not talking about me because I disagree with this. But once I read all these comments, it's obvious. Wow, there are a lot of people in the church that believe you shouldn't expose anything. That if it's happened in the church, it should stay in the church. That is the exact culture that we see at the ramp and some other churches. That is the culture that got us where we are right now. And And there's some more comments that I want to read. And Haley actually commented on this. And I know Haley. I know a lot of you do, but she's awesome. Haley Goodwin Beard, and she said her comment was, if you are a child predator and the church is protecting it instead of the children, you absolutely deserve to be exposed. People should be warned of churches that protect these people. I'm paraphrasing. I quite literally don't see why not. Churches are not above this. I couldn't agree with her post more. Now, again, this is what I've read some of his comments, and what he claims he is talking about in his post is people who are gossiping about things they don't know. So he says he agrees with Haley on this. So again, this is not a knock to him. I'm just telling you what I thought about immediately. And obviously, Haley thought the same thing immediately when she read it, and some other people. This comment, in my opinion, is what has created the culture in the churches that we need to get rid of. And this person says, personal opinion, exposure culture is a byproduct of a deeper issue. It seems the divide between the divide angst between church members and church leadership is at an all-time high. You have leaders that treat the church like a business. What? This may be the wrong comment. Let me read it, make sure. And then get upset when members act like consumers. I think a heart that roots for exposure needs an encounter with the Father. So she'll say one thing that I completely agree with, and the next thing I completely disagree with. But I also think church leadership would do well to step back and examine the state of the sheep. If they listened, they would know most feel unheard and even exploited. Reconciliation is desperately needed, which requires humility in the body of Christ. So, and again, she and I are probably thinking about two completely different things. I get that. But her statement, I think a heart that roots for exposure needs an encounter with the Father. Now, I guess it really depends on how you look at that. Yeah, if somebody's just sitting back and hoping and rooting for bad things to happen to good people in the church, well, then yeah, and maybe that's what she's meaning. And y'all know this is one of my pet peeves. When I see people make these kind of comments, I know exactly who they are, and I know their type. And Jamie here says, it's the need to gossip about others and be heard. No foundation, no grounds, just mouthy. Now, if that's the truth, then yeah, I agree with Jamie. But the last part of his comment is where I know what he is. What's actually exposed is the posture or condition of the gossiping heart. Until there was social media, they were all muted mouths and never heard. In other words, he wants to go back to that time. And yes, anyone that loved the 60s, parts of the 70s, yeah, they want to go back to that time. They sure do. Those of us that want to do right and make people accountable, we don't. Without social media, could you imagine how much we would still be in the dark about how much people lie to us, especially our government and some of our leaders, if it weren't for social media? We wouldn't know half the stuff that goes on. I mean, it is a proven fact now that more people trust some big time podcasters than they do mainstream media any day, and for good reason. We know we can't trust mainstream media. We know that. So thank God for social media in that sense. But a lot of these, can I say it? A lot of these OWGs, they can't stand it. They wish they were back in the 60s. That's just a fact. Just a fact. And then Kevin here said that's exactly what I'm talking about. Now Calvin here is right in line with me, because he said, "How about protecting people from deception?" And that's why I do what I do, to make people aware of what's going on and to hold those people that are involved in the corruption accountable. And again, if it wasn't for social media, we wouldn't have any of that. We would just be still getting lied to every single day by mainstream media, and we wouldn't know what's going on. Like Renee here, there's a lot of people that hate people like me. They cannot stand that we expose people. They can't stand it. And I agree with Angela. I can appreciate the ones that are genuine. They are trying to protect others from the wolves. I've watched enough to know the difference between someone trying to tear someone down and point out error. And I completely agree with that. Yes, there are definitely people on social media that are they love tearing people down. They love making fun of people. I mean, all that stuff. But there are definitely some that are doing this for a purpose. Trying to find, there's another comment. Let me see, I took a screenshot of it. Tommy Lehman. Let's find this comment. And I completely disagree with Dawn here. Gossip or public humiliation should never be part of exposing. I mean, I guess I think I agree with her on the gossip part. But if she is saying that exposing should never be public, nah. Again, that's what the OWGs would love. I don't know. I can't find that. So I've got a screenshot of it. So I'm going to read this comment that I was talking about. And this Tommy says, doesn't it make sense to allow leadership close to the problem handle the problem instead of broadcasting it to the world? There is a clear solution found in Matt 18:15-17. Let's do that. That is the exact culture that we have got to get away from in the church. That right there. It is proved time and time again that doesn't work. Doesn't it make sense to allow leadership close to the problem handle the problem instead of broadcasting it? No, it does not make sense because it doesn't work. Because unfortunately, a lot of times, these leaders are more worried about the reputation of their church, which is exactly what all these comments are pretty much talking about. They're worried about the reputation of the church versus the things going on inside the church that are bad. That has to change, or we're going to continue to run people off from the church. People are not ignorant. They see through this. If you are a leader in any organization, especially a church, and you're more worried about your reputation as a church than the members in your church, you have a major problem. And we have seen that so many times, it's ridiculous. That is why we see all of these Christians pissed off about people exposing things in the church because they're more worried about how other people see them and what people think about their church. They're just more worried about the reputation than they are the actual people in it and the children in it at times, unfortunately. But it's troubling to me to see this many people on this post. Because, I mean, this guy's got a huge following, so there's a lot of people that's commented, and the amount that is, they can't stand anything to get exposed inside the church. And they truly, I mean, you can see it. They truly believe that it should stay inside the church. I've said it so many times. It blows my mind how many Christians truly don't know the Bible. They hear things and they regurgitate it. It's sad. But as I've said numerous times, if it says in the Bible anywhere that we should not judge people based on their actions, by their fruits, please show me that, because I've yet to find it. I've found the opposite. But there is no doubt in my mind, Karen Wheaton, Samuel Bentley are they're literal false prophets. They are sheep in they are wolves in sheep clothing, and they have a lot of people fooled. And they handled their business inside their church for years. And due to them doing that, that took the innocence of a lot of children. So, no, that's not how we should handle things. The Bible is constantly telling us to watch out for false prophets that come to you in sheep's clothing. And by their fruit, you will recognize them. That's the people we're calling out. That's the exposure we're doing based on their fruit, their actions. But we are commanded, literally, to judge people based on their actions and their behavior. And I still every day see the comment, it's not your place to judge. That's people that don't know anything about the Bible. They hear something, they can constantly repeat it, and they have no clue what they're talking about. I'm so tired of hearing that. I am so tired of hearing that. And then, like I said, I get on that post today and I start seeing all these comments and seeing the amount of people that call themselves Christians that are probably in church every time the doors are open, and they can't stand for anything inside their church to get exposed to the outside. And somehow they've gotten in their mind the Bible tells us it shouldn't get on the outside. Obviously, they're reading a different Bible than I am. There is, I see some people talking about the election. Yes, very, very big, very, very important elections tomorrow. Anybody that wants my opinion, if you don't, you're going to hear it anyway. Walker County, tomorrow is your chance to actually make a change. Literally. The most important thing that you have to do is actually go vote. You have to go vote. If you live in that county, for sure, you have to go vote tomorrow. Because we have to get Nick Smith out of that office. That's your only hope. And I hope you all realize how important that is. My opinion, you need to vote for Jason Akins. J.C. Poe is a good speaker. He seems pretty smart, honestly. He's way too old. He is way too old. It would be impossible for him to run that agency the way it needs to be ran at his age. It's just impossible. I've yet to date heard anything bad about Jason Akins. And that is unbelievable to me, honestly. But you have to actually go to the polls and vote. That's the most important thing. Tell your friends and family. If you have friends or family that don't have a way, call them. Say, hey, I'm going to vote at this time. Do you need a ride? This is extremely important. I can't express how important this is. Sean, I don't know what that means. I really wish it was that easy, but it's not. They're going to put who they want in. No, if you go vote, if enough of people go vote for Jason Akins and not for Nick Smith, Jason Akins will beat him. I mean, it is that easy, literally. And I understand some of you don't trust any of them, but you know what Nick Smith is. So you got to take a chance on one of the others. That's for sure. And I'm very frustrated and aggravated at J.C. Poe. He knows how old he is. He knows he can't stay in that office long at all, even if he won. But what he has done by entering this election is he's splitting the votes. And if Nick Smith wins, it's going to be 100% J.C. Poe's fault. Y'all need to understand that. Because I've seen people, not a lot, but I've seen some saying they're going to vote for J.C. Poe. You need to vote for Jason. If you want to get rid of Nick Smith, you better vote for Jason Akins. Because I'm telling you, a large majority of people are voting for Jason Akins. I have spoken to so many people there. So Be careful with splitting that vote. Again, I'll say this again. I have yet to date heard one bad thing about Jason Akins. I can't say that about anybody else in Walker County I've heard about. I mean, honestly. For senator, if you live in Alabama, please go vote tomorrow. Again, this is very, very important. We have to understand how important these things are. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people been brainwashed, like I think it was Sean said, it doesn't matter. They're going to put in who they no, that's not the way it works. I've been a part and seen the ins and outs of politics for a long time. I have an education in it. Trust me when I say what matters is you actually going and voting. And tomorrow, if you live in Walker County, it's the most important election that you've probably ever had. I'm just telling you that. If you live in the state of Alabama, who we put in D.C. as our next senator is very, very, very important. And if you want someone that's actually a change, if you want someone that is truly, I don't care what anybody says, again, I have literally put my own reputation at stake for him, and that is Jared Hudson. I am telling you, he is 100% who he says he is. I don't care what everybody makes up about him. If you've never trusted anything I say, trust this. Jared Hudson is who he says he is. But we have to go vote. If you want the exact same thing that we have had in there, if you want to keep it just like that and nothing changed, then vote for Steve Marshall or Barry Moore. I promise you, you will not see one change of anything if you do. I promise you that. I will bet a lot of money with anybody right now that if one of them win, you're not going to see any change. So vote. Vote for Barry Moore or Steve Marshall, and you will get the exact same thing we've had. I know 100% fact if either one of them win, they are fully controlled. I know that. I know 100% of the fact Jared Hudson is not. No one's going to tell him what to do. Again, I don't care what all lies they make up. If you have friends or family that vote in Alabama, tell them how important it is. And we have to get Jared Hudson in as our next senator. Honestly, I cannot tell you how excited I am to know that he may be in there and that we are actually going to see progress and things change. With the problems we have right now, with everybody griping and losing their mind over the Epstein files, why would we not want Jared Hudson in D.C., the man that has literally dedicated his life to fighting child predators? How, like, if you have said one thing about the Epstein files and you don't vote for Jared Hudson, then you were full of shit. You think Barry Moore or Steve Marshall is going to do anything about that? No. Again, they're going to do the exact same thing that everybody else has. And that's nothing. Red, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but if you're saying anything, I'm telling you, Jared Hudson is not going to be controlled by anybody, and he is truly who he says he is. He is the exact same person behind closed doors as he shows you out. I mean, I'm telling you that. And no, he has not paid me one penny. No, I'm not getting paid by him or anyone. That's truly how passionate I am about him getting that next Senate seat. Because I know, and I know Barry Moore, I know Steve Marshall. They're not the most horrible people in the world. They are fully controlled. It's as simple as that. Again, if you want the exact same thing we've been having, then vote for one of them. I'm telling you, I don't care what anybody says. Jared Hudson hasn't been bought, and he's not going to be. You'll see. But that's the most important election that we have in Alabama, in my opinion. They're all important for sure, but that one will affect us a lot. And I'm so ready to see a change. I'm so ready for someone that's more like me to be up there. And if you vote for him, that's what you're going to get. But if again, we have a chance to put someone in our nation's legislature that literally has dedicated his life to fighting child predators. That's all he's done for years now. So let's get him in D.C. But again, most important thing, go vote. Just go vote. If you didn't have the right to vote, you would be screaming down on your hands and knees, pissed off at the world if you didn't have the right to. You have the right to vote. Go do it. It's very important. But again, I will be back tomorrow night. We're doing a special live tomorrow night for the election. It's going to be pretty laid back. We'll keep up with how some of the elections are going and do that, but it will be kind of laid back. I think it'll be fun, and we'll have a lot of discussions. Again, if you are not following me, please, I would really appreciate if you hit the follow button. If you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, Agent D Baker, I'd really, really appreciate that. We're trying to build that up. It is getting on up there a little bit, but we need a lot more. So if you are ever on YouTube, go over Agent D Baker and subscribe to the page. And I would really appreciate it. And again, that's one place you can see my full podcast. The 3 places you can find my full podcast is YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And we also have an X account now, so you can find me on there, Agent D Baker. So if you're on X, make sure you go and follow me on there. And I will see y'all back. I was reading a comment. I will see y'all back tomorrow night. Again, probably around 8 p.m. And I think we'll have a good time. But I appreciate each and every one of you for being on here. I've really enjoyed it. And I'll see y'all back tomorrow. Welcome to Truth Recon. I'm Agent D Baker, former narcotics detective, SWAT team member, and U.S. Navy combat veteran. With years of real-world experience in high-stakes environments, I've seen firsthand the dangers that lurk both in our communities and now increasingly online. Before this show begins, understand this. What you are about to hear may be disturbing to some audiences. This podcast